Now, Vanessa, let's move back to the Middle East and Syria, Palestine, and Israel. You're muted.
Doing this. On October the 25th, there was a big escalation in Nablus, and actually Jenin young men came to the support of the resistance in Nablus that was under serious attack by the Israeli occupation forces, that blew up a car with Palestinians inside, killing 3, which were reported to be members of the newly formed Lion's Den resistance in Nablus. 2 others were killed, who were actually just bystanders caught up in the firefight. 14 injured, and Israel blew up a house with 3 anti-tank missiles. And we know that drones were being used to target civilian areas inside Nablus during this particular attack. Now, what I want to talk about, and we can see a video of the funeral procession after this escalation in Nablus and the occupied territories, if you have that, Mike.
Yep.
Now, what is very interesting is that in the clip, you probably wouldn't have identified them, but there are Syrian flags flying inside that procession of thousands of people that came out onto the streets for the funerals of the 6 Palestinians killed during the Israeli attacks. Now, why is this relevant? In the last couple of weeks, Hamas has effectively been welcomed back into Damascus, or it's met with President Assad. Why I'm saying that that's unusual is that Hamas, and we don't have time to go into it now, but Hamas was instrumental as a Muslim Brotherhood organization in the destabilization of Syria from pre-2011 onwards. So now what has happened is that Hamas and various resistance factions, Palestinian resistance factions, have been offered forgiveness, let's say, by Syria, and there is now unity between all of the Palestinian resistance factions, which was also concretized in the Algiers conference a few days before the Hamas meeting inside Damascus, where the various Palestinian factions sign a reconciliation agreement in Algiers, the Declaration of Unity, basically. Why is this important? In the last week, Israel has effectively attacked, I don't know if you have that slide, Mike. It's attacked Syria 3 times in less than a week, which is extraordinary, even by Israeli standards. And in fact, I have to say that where I'm living to the west of Damascus, this area is regularly targeted because there is a joint Iranian-Syrian technical research center very close to me. There's also an air base and an air defense base. I would recommend that everybody goes to this blog, Believe in Syria, the Axis of Resistance, which has been established by a young former Syrian Arab Army researcher and analyst. It will give you an insight that you're not going to get anywhere else, and especially not in mainstream media. So basically what he argues is that Israel now is starting to get desperate with the unity of the Palestinian resistance factions. And I have to say that my reading of what happened in Nablus after the meeting with President Assad and Hamas is effectively a retaliation from the resistance groups for the attacks by Israel on Syria. And what he explains is that what Israel is trying to do, it knows that Syria is developing drone technology, precision-guided missile technology with its allies in underground development centers in Masyaf, in Damascus, in Aleppo. and it wants to destroy these centers, but it can't with guided missiles, because basically they're underground. The missiles are not precision enough to be able to enter the underground facilities and destroy them. So what is Israel trying to do? It's trying to create a hole in Syria's air defense so that it can actually send planes into Syrian territory to try and destroy these research centers, because Israel now is in a very precarious position. As I've argued before, it's facing multiple fronts: Yemen, Iran, Syria, Palestinian resistance, Hezbollah. It had to surrender over the Karish gas deal because it was being threatened militarily by Hezbollah if it didn't back down. It backed down. So we're seeing a very desperate Israel, which I think is in parallel with a very desperate US and UK reference Ukraine, of course. But I think the main takeaway point from here now is the unity and solidarity of the Palestinian resistance faction. So I think we are going to see an escalation in tensions in the occupied territories, maybe even from Gaza, and maybe ultimately also from Syria, if Israel continues to violate Syria's territorial integrity as it is doing. And I have to say, one of the attacks 3 days ago, the missile passed over the roof of my house at around 2 p.m. in the afternoon. There were children in the school playground. This was targeting Damascus airport, but these missiles can be brought down at any point, and the shrapnel from the bringing down can land in any of these civilian areas. So for people to really understand, these are not only military tactical self-defense attacks or aggression, as Israel likes to describe them, but these potentially can kill civilians.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.